right? So now when we think about education, we typically think of, K-12 and college education, getting a master's, PhD, whatever it is. 10% of what fills up your brain in terms of knowledge and experience comes from actual book and class learning. Hey everybody, today I'm going to speak with you about the topic of education, and I'm going to give you another kind of alternative way of looking at education. But before I dive into this topic, I'd like to ask a favor of you, that I'd like for you to subscribe and like this video. This will have a real important impact on the number of people being able to watch this video, and I would certainly appreciate any support that you could provide there. All right, so today we're going to talk about education, and I'm going to give you a very different way of looking at education. And I'm going to give that to you in the form of three numbers: 10, 20, and 70. So what that refers to is that when we look holistically at education and all about learning and acquiring knowledge and so forth, that about 10% of your education comes from actual book learning, right? So now when we think about education, we typically think of, K-12 and college education, getting a master's, PhD, whatever it is. So we think in terms of that type of formal education. What I want to share with you though is only about 10% of what fills up your brain in terms of knowledge and experience comes from actual book and class learning. It's only 10%. So the other 20% comes from watching people. You could watch people and gain experience by just watching how people are doing things. And then the biggest part of learning, the full 70%, well over half of your learning, comes from actually doing it. And so having that experience and doing it firsthand, having instant feedback and learning from how you're operating. So let's just take an example. Let's take baseball, right? And this could be applied to any sport. You could learn how to play baseball somewhat by reading a book. You can read a book, learn all the rules, figure out how to put your hands for pitching, how to position your glove, and how to bat, and you could read all you want about baseball, and you might be able to get about 10% of the learning from that. Another 20% could come from watching. So you're watching baseball, you're watching some of the best baseball players, and catching games and watching them in person and all of that, seeing how they operate, how they bat, how they swing the bat, and how they catch the balls and all those kinds of things. So that could be another 20%. But actually the full 70% of learning how to play baseball is getting that glove on, throwing the ball, catching grounders, getting your bat, and actually facing real pitchers. So that's where 70% comes into play, because you're actually doing it. You're getting real-time feedback. You're getting all of that exposure to different game situations and all of that. So that's what we want to apply if we're thinking about education for yourself and learning how to work within a career area. So what that means is that 10% of learning what you're doing should come from the book learning. 20% could be through things like internships, where you're actually watching somebody doing the job that you want to do, or watching your manager, if they're an effective manager, how they're operating. And then 70% is actually the experience that you get on the job, doing what you want to do and becoming proficient at it. So again, this is another way of looking at education, and I'd like for you to think about that as you're applying it and as you're trying to become better and better in whatever you're trying to do, whether that be work related or even learning how to play baseball or whatever that might be. All right, so hopefully you'll take these lessons to heart and apply them in what you do. All right, take care. Bye-bye.